Yes, everyone, you know what time it is. It's your boys, Jack and Dave and Sonny here, and we're trying something out for the first time. We're gonna, try this podcast maybe live for the members first, maybe at some stage release it for the rest of everybody. But yeah, I thought maybe we could have a bit of engagement, maybe at certain stages, and just treat the podcast like normal, but maybe have some of the members have a bit of a sneak peek while we're doing this. But really do appreciate anybody that might be tuning in at any stage of this podcast. But Sonny. How are you? Post Man City and Ange. He's triumphant, against Pep Guardiola, like many other Spurs managers, carrying on the magical dust that we seem to have against them.
I mean, I'm very jubilant after all that. I mean, what a game it was. Just, if anyone hasn't seen my reaction to that game so far, I didn't react to it straight away. I waited a day because I'm at home this weekend, hence why I've got a massive hair rabbit in the background. It's not my bedroom. So, yeah, in that video, I sort of said, like, Ange proved everyone wrong. He went away to the treble winners, played his brand of football, and really, smashed it out of the park. Really happy. And buzzing. And also, I've just realised, because I'm home for the weekend, my dad is a big fan of a flat cap. So I'm trying to think where in this room there might be a flat cap, and I might go and find one and put it on and finally join the flat cap army. I feel like I need to.
It's been an army that's rising, Sonny, ever since me and Jack brought them to the fan base. So, you have to get one, my man. It's going to be a part of the uniform now for the podcast.
What would be the first place you would look, Dave, for a flat cap?
Ireland, we're famous for them. I have been ever since, the early 60s and stuff like that. Love a good flat cap over here, so we do. But yeah, that's where you get them.
Maybe just look under your desk and you'll find Ireland, and that's where you can get a flat cap. But everybody in this podcast, like we have been trying to do, we're trying to add a bit of structure to it. So in part one, we're just going to kind of discuss some of the sort of quick fire news that sort of is more transfer related / kind of maybe some more kind of sentimental stuff towards the end, maybe about the Man City game. But everybody, if you can for us, smash that like button, get your comments in, and head on over to Sonny Talk Spurs, please, and check out all the content that he'll be putting out throughout this week and throughout the weeks ahead as well, because we will continue to collaborate in a lot of different ways. So please check out Mr. Sonny Talk Spurs. But we're first going to get started with Nazar Kinsella. I'm not sure if it's a one where you kind of pronounce the double L as kind of something else. But Nazar Kinsella of the Evening Standard has put out that there's a kind of a pursuit of left-sided center backs this January. We're going after Jean-Clair Todibo, Lloyd Kelly, and Marc Guehi are at the top of the agenda at Hotspur Way. I'll maybe go to you, Dave, because I know you're so desperate for the center backs. Would you have a preference amongst those names there? And I guess this is just like I kind of like to see, or like to say, nice to hear, at least nice to read that we're connected to center backs.
No, look, it's very nice to hear. For some reason, we have a stigma against centre-backs at this football club, Jack, which really annoys me. It takes us a real long time to be able to do business and get it done in that department, even though it's been one of the most costly areas over the last few years. However, slowly but surely we're getting there. But I find it interesting that it's specifically a left-sided centre-back. Does that spell the end for Ben Davies then come the end of the season? Does that mean we're okay with right centre-back, that Ashley Phillips is going to be that backup to Romero once he's back fit? So I find it very interesting in that regard. I would say the fact that it is a left-sided centre-back we're specifically looking for, I do think that maybe spells the end for Davies maybe come the summer. But look, do I have any sort of preference? Marc Guehi, I'd prefer Anderson, to be honest with you. I know Anderson doesn't play on the left, but I'm not sure about Marc Guehi, Jack. Lloyd Kelly, look, there are some big clubs rumored to be interested, some teams in Italy and stuff like that. But again, I'll be honest, if someone like Lloyd Kelly comes in here or Marc Guehi, they're definitely 100% coming in as a backup. And we see how that works for Dyer and Davies, and we see the drop-off. What we need is someone to actually come in here and challenge them for that starting centre-back role. So you're probably looking at more like Jean-Clair Todibo, Jack, to maybe come in there and maybe to challenge. Because what we can't do is make the same mistake that we've done where we think, okay, no, we'll just persist with Sanchez and a Dyer and a Davies as backups when there's a complete drop-off in quality. Can't make that same mistake. If you want to go on and win titles and you want to take this where Ange Postecoglou wants to take this, you have to bring in players that are here to compete.
I think Todibo and Guehi would probably be the more expensive options, whereas Lloyd Kelly might be a bit of a cheaper choice. Do you have a preference amongst those names, Sonny? And would you agree with my theory on Guehi that maybe he's kind of, I don't know, he's always seemed to make some mistakes, I think, here and there whenever I watch him play. He's kind of capable of I wouldn't say like a bad mistake, but sometimes I feel like that Crystal Palace defense, it does look like it's more like Dave said, maybe Anderson that, maybe more regularly shines than actually Guehi does. And I'm liking the flat cap. I'm liking the choice
Yeah,
there.
it's looking
Yeah,
good.
I know. I was like, I think I know where it is, and I quickly jumped
Smarter?
off camera there and got it.
Feel smarter, or
But
do you feel like, you're getting more delusional as kind of the flat cap has
yeah, I
come
feel
onto
like
the
I'm
desk?
starting to believe that there's an agenda now. I'm getting Dave's energy pour into
Exactly.
me and take over my body.
Exactly.
But
Preferences?
I mean, I'm a big fan of. I can't concentrate now. I'm a big fan of Marc Guehi and Anderson. I think I've got a few fans, got a few friends who are Crystal Palace fans, and we were debating the other day whether they're one of the best partnerships centre backs wise outside of the big six, and I think they could be. I think Anderson is really good at ball playing. I think they're both really comfortable with the ball at their feet. Marc Guehi, you're probably going to be looking at quite a hefty fee, English, prospect and all that sort of thing. I think it'd be amazing to get in. I'm just not sure if we're going to deal in that ballpark. Maybe more trustworthy than Todibo. I mean, we spoke a lot about him last week on last week's podcast, didn't we? And aired our feelings on that move. But I do think, yeah, Guehi I'm warming to. Lloyd Kelly, I mean, I don't think he's good enough potentially. But Guehi or Anderson, either one of them, I'd be very, very happy with. It just depends. Again, I think I used this argument last week, and I know what Dave will say back. Like Guehi is good enough probably to start most games in a good side. So, and he's going to be. There'll be a lot of fierce competition between him, Romero, and Mickey van der Ven, and all that. So it would be interesting to see who we'd get in and like who, because you never know. He could like displace maybe a Romero or at least try to. But that's what's really annoying about this. Is like I love Mickey and I love Romero as a partnership, and anyone who comes in, it's like you want them to sort of, give them a firm fight, but at the same time, you're like, do you want to break up a good partnership? We've seen with Arsenal and their goalkeepers, why try and fix something if it isn't broken? But injuries happen, and it's good to have squad depth.
Yeah, this is true. And Marc Guehi technically could try to fill in on the right as well as kind of challenge perhaps on the left, whereas maybe some of the others, I'm not sure if you could say the same thing about them. But in the case of also Guehi too, we kind of fill in for that homegrown kind of role as well, which is pretty valuable to Spurs. I think we've been kind of trying to improve that more and more, kind of realizing that that's kind of been the area that we just haven't been as kind of successful in, you could say, in the transfer market of recent. But moving on to another center back, and I'll throw this one again actually at Dave. Tottenham continue to show interest in Tosin Adarabioyo from Alistair Gold. I think you are a bit of a Tosin fan, if I remember right, Dave?
Yeah, look, I like Tosin Adarabioyo. I know a lot of people will say, oh, he's only at Fulham, and why are they letting him go if he's that good? It's a complete different situation at that club. He had they extended his contract by an extra year in hopes to try and convince him to sign a new contract, and he hasn't done that. But when it comes to Adarabioyo, this guy will come in, he'll classify as homegrown, so that sorts us out in that sort of department. He came through the City Academy, and if people go back and you can find many highlight reels on Adarabioyo and stuff like that. And one thing that I noticed specifically from his game, and I've watched him a few times for Fulham as well, I like him, before this season. But one thing about Guehi, if you're talking about someone that maybe can offer you a little bit of what Romero offers you in terms of on the ball, he's your guy. Like Romero, he can pass that ball, forward into advanced areas, in behind the back line. I've seen Adarabioyo do that time and time again for Fulham before. So I really do like Adarabioyo. However, I do have my doubts about him coming in this January, because he is only off the back of an injury and a surgery, and I've no doubt he chose to go and get that done before a move pops up. But if we're talking about needing players to hit the ground running, we might just have to look at other targets. But if Tottenham do bring him in and he is fit, I think we'll get one hell of a player on our hands, because people go and look what he said before. He wants a quick pathway to the top. He ain't there to accept a backup role. That's not what he wants. He left City because at the time they had a lot of injuries at centre back. He wasn't given his opportunity. He was sent out on loan. So then he decided to leave City full time the following season and go make his way back to the very top of the pyramid. Some would argue he's already halfway there. So, look, I really like what he's about. If you talk about, mentality, I like that from him. I think it'd be a good signing if he's fit.
And we'll be discussing mentality later, of course. We'd love to add to that. Kind of going later to Italy here, and we'll pass this one to you, Sonny. Daniele Longo of Calcio Mercato had kind of alluded that maybe Spurs could be leading the race for Samuel Iling-Junior. I think kind of England international, who's maybe not getting enough minutes, but is a pretty talented kind of England international over at Juventus. And Nazar Cancella, again, also kind of alluding to the fact that Spurs could be leading the race for the player, and it could be around £15.5 million if we wanted to bring him in this January. And they are suggesting that he could be available this January. So what are your thoughts, if any, that you might have on the player? I'll be honest, I didn't know much about him and only know that he's kind of a left-footed player from what I could gather.
Yeah, I can't tell a lie. I don't know too much about this player either, but it ticks a lot of boxes that Tottenham want. English players are needed for the quota. We're severely lacking in that department, especially when Eric Dyer leaves the club and the potential of other players. I say Eric Dyer. I don't think Eric Dyer does count as homegrown. I think because of his Portuguese roots, he doesn't. So I don't know why I've said that. But we've still got such a severe lack in that department. Obviously, Juventus links. Paratici, so you can see where that's sort of coming out of favour player who seemed to perform well at this club. So, it does have a lot of the attributes to, you understand why it is happening. Also, it's probably one of those players where the new approach that Tottenham are doing with this stat-based signings, it probably ticks a lot of boxes in that department of not so much like a known name. I don't think many of our targets are going to be known names, but for the money, 15 million, I mean, in the modern market it's nothing, is it really? So even as a punt, I think it's worth a go just to see, he might go straight into the academy and, what a good breeding ground that is for players developing at the moment. But I think it's worth a shout. Famously in January, we never, go all guns blazing, do we, and splash too much cash. But I think 15 million is a bit of a savvy signing, and saying that in a flat cap makes me feel like I'm like an East End boy again.
You could look at him as maybe a Perisic kind of replacement if he's supposed to be a forward, maybe left-footed.
We
Not
do
sure.
need that.
I'm only
really
speculating what he brings in the forward areas. But I mean, adding another left-footer or left-footed player to maybe the forward line is maybe helpful because we have lost Perisic, technically. And also there's the other kind of sort of Italian player, or at least not Italian player, Serie A player that we're also connected to. And maybe it is Paratici working behind the scenes here. And I must be honest, I didn't, again, know much about this player that we're connected with. It's Tottenham apparently are monitoring the Juventus-owned winger Matias Soule, I believe an Argentinian international who's on loan from Juventus at Frosinone, and so far he has 6 goals and 1 assist. And I looked at it, and he's actually outperforming his XG in the goals department, and also as well when it comes to the assists. It looks like that he should actually have more than that 1 assist. He should have about 3 or 4 assists according to FBref. And then I decided to look back at some of his highlights that luckily Brazil Scout were able to put together in terms of a kind of a very recent compilation, only from the last kind of a month or so that I think it was posted. And so it's kind of more recent footage of kind of the stuff he's been doing this season. And I was kind of blown away by this kid. He actually is almost everything that I love with a lot of different types of players. He kind of almost plays a bit like an itch, if I'm going to be honest, Dave. He kind of is like a bit of an Ilicic type player, kind of plays almost like a Riyad Mahrez, where he's just really technical. He's actually quite tall, looks like he could be maybe around 6 feet from what I could tell. And I think that's at least according to his Wikipedia page from what I gathered. And he's kind of a right wing type of a kind of winger. He seems to sort of like to cut inside on that left foot, kind of a technician, has a good pass on him, really good vision. I wouldn't say is super similar to Kulusevski other than the fact that they're kind of both tall, both like to cut inside and are both left-footed, but they both are very creative players, and maybe it's kind of a similar Kulusevski type guy that we're going for in terms of not saying the play style or anything, but just sort of, I don't know, what they have, what they bring, their build and everything like that. He also scored a few headers at the back post, from what I can tell. I like his sort of build. He's not one of those speedy, kind of a typical kind of wingers. He's actually more like a Mahrez, or like I sort of would say, almost like an Itch, kind of like an Ilicic, who sort of reminding me of with some of the passes and everything. And also because Ilicic back in the day used to absolutely tear apart the Serie A. So he kind of just reminded me of him. He also rocks the short socks and, the small shin pads. So big fan of that. Some nice tattoos as well. Kind of has a haircut like yourself, Dave, nice and clean, not too much, fanciness to it. And Argentinian international. I mean, I was actually really, I've only just discovered him in the last 2 hours, but I was really, into it. He's on my mind right now, Dave.
Yeah, I believe he came from the same club that Valencia, I could be wrong, but he came from the Argentinian league originally, and he's moved to Juve. Looking with Iling-Junior, I mean, look, we haven't got a bad signing from Juventus yet, have we? So, but with both signings, I struggle to see what they're going to come in and do, because for me, we need players to come in and hit the ground running. And looks, the wing areas, they haven't been the most prolific this season. Now, look, there could be signs from the City game that maybe they're just starting to get going and that they could come and click. But I struggle to understand what we're trying to do with these two guys, because if they're young signings coming in here to add more competition for the likes of Sunsup Bell and people like that coming through, I can understand it, right? But if it's to come in here and make an impact in the first team, Iling-Junior doesn't have much experience at all. He left the Chelsea Academy to go to Juve, but he's only played, I think, a couple of games for them. And with this guy, he's played a bit more, to be fair. Do I think Tottenham will get bought? Probably not. But look, let's wait and see what happens.
Yeah, I just was blown away by the compilation reel. It really was. And also the stats, also were, coming through too. I mean, he's clearly having a great season so far. 6 goals and 1 assist for a mid-table Serie A club on loan as well. Like, it's not too shabby. He looks to be like having a good season. And of course, a young player as well. I was all over this one. And again, this could be the Paratici, the Don, working behind the scenes here. And we always love to hear that, especially over here on the Irish Hotspur. But we're going back to you again here, Dave. Jamie Donley getting his first minutes, and we were speaking to Sean Maddox about it, who's also a huge kind of a fan of the academy, and I think was selling him short by saying he didn't get a touch of the ball. I did see a block, I did see a clearance, I think, of some kind from Jamie Donley. He got on, and he got stuck in for us, and he's getting his first minutes, and hopefully many more minutes to come. And he's one of our own, the newest academy talent. I bet you're like a proud 3rd, 5th, 4th father, of Jamie Donley, if he were to have many fathers of the academy.
Oh, Jack, I was like a very proud father when he came off the bench. I was absolutely buzzing for him. What happened to all these saints? You can't play a youngster against Man City. Well, guess what? And Postecoglou did do that. So that blows all of that out the window. I've been saying for quite some time now, if other guys are not up to it, ship them on and bring through some of the youngsters and give them that opportunity. And I'm glad we're slowly starting to do that. And when it comes to Jamie Donley, this is a guy that's worked absolutely incredibly hard and absolutely deserves to make that debut. You've got like Abbott and people last year who made a debut way before Donley that didn't deserve it. You've got Valise that made a debut before Donley that did not deserve it. If you're talking about someone that deserves it and you want to set an example for every other academy kid coming through, you have to give him his opportunity. And the reason why is, Jack, we've seen him for the under-18s last year in that final. Absolutely stand out. Absolutely unbelievable. Watched him so much for the under-21s this year and last year. Absolutely stand out. Unbelievable. Best player by a mile. Head and shoulders above everybody else in that under-21 team. And I hear a lot, but he doesn't play that position. What do you expect him to do? Well, Jamie Donley started in the academy as a striker, banging in the goals. But because of injuries, mainly last season to the under-21s, he's had to play centre midfield. He's had to play right and left wing. And guess what? Output still stays the same in terms of goals and assists. So for me, if anyone has deserved it. It has been Jamie Donley. And look, people could say, I didn't do that. And he was brought on to provide legs and just get back, help track back, make a nuisance, get after that ball. And he done it. He went up for a challenge with Haaland, which was absolutely buzzing about. And he got a block in, like you said, Jack. But it's just, hopefully it'll do him the world of confidence. Hopefully it will push him on and inspire him more, which I have no doubt if it will. He's got a great grounding, a great family behind him that will not allow him to get ahead of himself. When he's missed easy opportunities before, he's been told in those certain circumstances, that's not on, if you want to make it at the top level. So look, for me, long may it continue, Jack, and hopefully this is a guy that we see for a very long time in the Spurs jersey, because he has definitely warranted it and deserved it. And I'm just so happy for him. I'm proud for him. And hopefully Dorrington's the next one through.
The Don Bomb got some minutes, and we absolutely love that. And also, too, Sonny. Yeah, go ahead.
I did predict it in the video at the start of the season. I did predict it in what I thought you players would come true. I did say if anyone will do it, it will be him.
Be the Don Bomb. Just quickly, Sonny, I mean, on sort of, seeing the academy players get some minutes, I mean, it's nicer to see if you're just asking someone to come on for the dying minutes of the game, just to run, as fast as you can, sideways and backwards, clear everything in front of him. You'd rather be almost an academy kid than just some guy like Ndombele who's on 200,000 a week or something, for the last minutes of the game. There's almost a beauty in, asking the academy kid to come on and just, kick the ball away and just sort of defend for his life, for the final minutes. I kind of, I prefer it that way.
I think I cheered louder for that than I did the equaliser, just to see him come on as well. I was just so happy about it. I just love us getting back to our roots of bringing through youth players and actually them getting minutes, because they are going to get minutes under this manager. They are going to get time. They are going to be bled in eventually. They're not just going to be chucked in at the deep end. And even some people would question that, bringing him on in the dying stages in a 3-3 draw away at the Etihad. But it's character building. It's what it's all about. And really happy to see him get some minutes, become the newest number. I think that's what was quite nice as well. Spurs made a really nice thing of it. I don't know what he's like 860 something, maybe third. I don't want to put me a thingy on that, but becoming the latest member of the family and all that sort of stuff. So, and big up Northern Irish as well. So
yeah, very very.
Play for England too.
Oh, yeah.
I think he has been playing for England, in fact, and that's where he's been getting a lot of minutes. He might be stealing them away. Man City, though, I'll go back to you on this one, Sonny. Man City punished by the FA for surrounding Simon Hooper, and now that you have your flat cap on, and like Tequila has said here, it has given you power. Maybe it's just making you feel different in some type of way. Not sure if it makes you feel smarter.
It don't suit me at all. I don't suit hats at all. It looks like a beret as well. I don't from straight on. It's not.
Green detective. You kind of look more detective-like than Dave and I do. But I would ask you, now that you have a flat cap on, you're starting to believe, I imagine, in agendas and everything like that. Simon Hooper, I think it's the opposite of what Dave says when it comes to referees having an agenda against us. Simon Hooper seems to love us. It's two decisions. I
want to know Dave's opinion on this afterwards as well.
Liverpool and now Man City. He's helped us out on a couple occasions, Simon Hooper, this season.
I mean, he had a howler. He had an absolute howler. Because even like when it was all happening, I'm there talking to my dad, going, "Oh, maybe he blew first, or maybe he hasn't seen it. Maybe Grealish did it." I'm making all my own excuses up. And then when I watched him back on Match of the Day, I was like, "No, he's had a mare. He's had a mare. How have we got away with that one?" But you never know. The bit I'd say about it is City were acting like Grealish had been denied a legit goal scoring opportunity. I'm talking about through one-on-one with the keeper already, because Vicario's saving that. I don't care what anyone says. He's saving that, or Emerson will just go through the back of him like that. So Simon Hooper. Everyone used to say Mike Dean. Maybe Simon Hooper's taken the Mike Dean mantle and has become our celebrity ref, or whatever you want to call them.
Dave, are you worshiping Simon Hooper now? I mean, you can't say that he's against us. This guy is, helping us out. We should have him every game.
Yeah, look, I actually put him up for Man of the Match award after the game. I mean, massively helped us out with that decision. However, I do feel like City players are more than entitled to go and surround him. Yes, they miss chances, and yes, they'll be angry about that, right? But the reality is they still had a chance at the end of the game, and it could have just the whistle didn't need to be blown. If you have the linesman communicating with the referee, all he has to say is he's on. He's supposed to be kept up with the player. That's why he's the linesman player, putting up his flag with the line. So all he has to communicate to the referee, he's on, let the advantage go. Clearly that didn't happen, which I'm glad about. But it just goes to show the state of refereeing. And for me, I get we got the point off City, and I'm a Spurs fan and everything else. However, them City players are well within their rights to go and be able to surround that referee. People go on like, oh, it's not acceptable. Go and look what Chelsea used to do and Man United used to do under Sir Alex Ferguson and Jose Mourinho, and tell me that that's not acceptable the way players conducting themselves nowadays. I remember Roy Keane and half United team chasing managers around or chasing referees around the pitch. So, it has improved since then. But for me, you're talking about people that train incredibly hard, make sacrifices, with their children, their wife, their family, stuff like that. Have sacrificed, a life that many of us normal people live, this, that, and the other, in the pursuit of greatness. And then little decisions like that, which could come back to haunt you at the end of the season and change the rewards you end up getting out of the season. So for me, I'm continuing on this. We don't need VAR. We just need the referees to be competent. However, my man of the match, Simon Hooper.
And he's getting it right for Spurs time and time again. Let's just hope that we can find him on maybe some of our FA Cup fixtures. Maybe he'll be assigned to those as well. Hooper was correct, in my honest opinion, says 4 with below. He tried to play advantage, but when he's got Grealish versus 3 defenders, he then decided there was none and gave the foul. I think he's kind of agreeing with you, too. I think that was sort of your point, Sonny, was like, even despite being played in behind and was a dangerous pass and everything. It's not like Grealish had like one more touch to go and then he was one-on-one with Vicario. He still had plenty more touches. Ben Davies looked like he was about to probably just, like you said, almost take him out. And Grealish is not really known for having blistering pace anyways. And Vicario has been a great sweeper keeper too so far this season. So it's not like it was a certain goal or anything like that. And
it's a bit like that
Scotty
rule,
Hynam saying Jack would have missed it anyway, which I like that from Scotty. Sorry.
It's just a bit like that rule where, like sometimes the last man rule. And then there's always the argument that, the other defender would have got over anyway. It's probably like that. It was like, there were too many of them over. So, yeah, that's probably what it was.
Alrighty. And we'll go with this one for you, Sonny, too. And then we'll end off part 1. But Erling Haaland tweeting, WTF after the game. If you saw his storm off, with the hair and everything, thoughts on Erling Haaland's maybe emotions?
He probably said that after playing against the duo that is Emerson Royale and Ben Davis. What WTF? I can't score against these two, Chicken Royale, and I saw someone refer to them as two. So I know I was cracking up, the Welsh choir boy or something. But no, honestly, he just lost his head, and I didn't realise. I thought at the end, like from the Sky coverage, he was moaning at like the fourth official or something. But the footage of like Lo Celso giving him a little nudge and then them two arguing, I thought was great. I think Lo Celso has done enough now to get himself back into the Tottenham Hotspur fans' hearts. 2 goals in 2 and riling up Haaland. I think, Haaland's just got to grow up a little bit. If you want to be the best of the best, you can't lose your head like that. You've missed an open goal. You've had a bit of a stinker, as City do usually against us, but just keep your head. I think you're, obviously he's probably saying, WTF, why is the Etihad not, where's the crowd, where's the noise, where's the atmosphere? Because Pep's probably moaning that there's no fans in the stadium. So, embarrassing Tin Pot Club.
Gio's definitely getting me to sign that apology form quicker if he was also the one that, ended up angering, Erling Haaland. That's actually quite class, I must admit. Bit of Argentinian housery towards the end. But I think we'll now move swiftly into part 2 here. And I was thinking about coming up with some fancy question like I always do, but didn't feel like I needed to because we were given so many delicious quotes out there that I've seen from 2 players in particular, James Maddison and Kulusevski. The first one's from James Maddison, having to do with Sonny and sort of his aura, his sort of presence around the club. I'm going to go to you first on this one, Dave, because I think Sonny, is sort of the leftover legend, since Harry Kane has left. But this was the quote that James Maddison had to say. He said, "People listen to him because he's such a great player. The young lads are training with us and involved in match day squads. If Sonny is talking, they are listening. He's just got a nice aura and a big personality, big player type of aura that comes alive in big moments and has clutch moments for the club as well. Is Sonny a Tottenham Hotspur legend, do you think, to kind of this younger generation of players that are, 15, 16, 17 right now? And how valuable is it to have sort of top class players like him, sticking around, throughout their, let's say, better years, their prime years, and, set an example for some of these guys?
Look, Jack, what was the title for the predicted lineup? This is where these are the games where legends are made. If you're talking about Sonny being a legend, how many times has he stepped up against City down the years? Even on that Champions League final run, stepped up. Look, the guy is a legend at Tottenham Hotspur. I know some people say, oh, you have to win things to be a legend, which I get to a certain degree, but I do feel like there are legends out there who maybe haven't won a trophy for whatever reason, but have been absolutely world class in terms of performances. So for me, I think Sonny definitely goes down as a legend for sure. And I think the reason why people listen to him is he's just such a great guy. He's one of them. He'll come over, put his arm around you, look what's going on, what's up, and he'll genuinely try and help you, and stuff like that. So I can understand why people would listen to him and why people would want to run for him. And stuff like that, Jack. I think, definitely a Tottenham legend. I mean, look at the amount of goals he scored, especially in big games. That's why Harry Kane goes down as a Tottenham legend, constantly turned up, like Maddison. What did Maddison say? Clutch moments for the club, in big games, just like Sonny. So for me, definitely goes down as a Tottenham legend. Am I delighted to see him staying here for such a long time and not a short time? Absolutely. I mean, growing up, I got attached to the likes of Gareth Bale, Luka Modric, Robbie Keane, Berbatov, Carrick, so many players that have just ultimately been absolutely superb for Tottenham, head and shoulders above the rest, and then end up getting picked off by the top clubs. Now, I'm delighted. Well, some would say we're still getting picked off by the top clubs by selling Harry Kane, I suppose. But look, it is good. That was the whole idea behind the stadium build. Because before we were having to sell the players because we couldn't offer them the wages and that these bigger clubs were coming in with because of our revenues and stuff like that and the money we were making. It was absolutely minuscule back at the time at White Hart Lane compared to the likes of Man United, Real Madrid and stuff like that. But since we've built the stadium, then one of the main reasons behind it was so that we could generate millions of euros so that we can pay these guys the big bucks and keep them around. Obviously, we've upgraded the facilities as well. So hopefully, Son maybe sets a trend now where he retires at Tottenham and you see more world-class players coming through and wanting to do the exact same thing.
Sonny, it's nice to see Sonny get such a great quote here. And do you kind of, what are your thoughts on just sort of him as a captain and also him, like I sort of said, being perhaps a legend maybe to some of these younger generation of sort of Spurs fans and academy kids that are training right now? And I guess it's nice to at least have somebody that's stuck around, as long as he has and didn't end up going down, I guess, the Luka Modric path or Gareth Bale path. I kind of maybe say in Harry Kane's case, it's almost like we got 75% of the squeeze, of Harry Kane's prime, but we didn't get all of it. Maybe we left a little bit over for the Germans to have. But in Sonny's case, right, it's nice to have somebody like that stick around as long as he has, as an example.
I think, like, without doubt, he is a legend. The numbers he's put up, the, goals, assists, played through the glory years of Pochettino, got us to a Champions League final, during those Premier League runs as well, when we were finishing constantly in the top 4, second in the Premier League, stuff like that. I mean, the captain thing's quite interesting. I've seen still, like, my dad, for example, is not sure, like, loves him to bits, thinks he's a legend, but is not sure whether he's got the character to be a captain. I disagree with that. He wanted Maddison to be the captain because he feels like Maddison has got more of that, maybe one, a winning mentality because he has with Leicester, an FA Cup and stuff like that. And two, Maddison has got that sort of, he is more outspoken and quite vocal. But then we don't know what Son is like behind closed doors. The way we see Son is sometimes he may look a little bit shy, but he has got that sort of personality where you see how he, he is with Ange and he puts his arm around people. And I don't know if anyone saw the coverage before the game on Sky, but Ange and Son did like a little thing where they were talking about the Asia Cup final 10 years ago. and they've got like a really good relationship now, like sort of like mates. And Roy Keane sort of slammed it and was like, "Oh, I was never like this with Fergie." And it's like, I don't see how that's a negative though, to have that sort of relationship with your manager. I feel like it's a good thing. You know, he relies on you. You know, it's a working relationship. You're not like, he was like, Roy Keane was wording it like, oh, they have tea and biscuits in the like office, and it's like, it's not like that. It's a professional relationship. But going back to the question, I think he's the perfect captain because we've rewarded his loyalty. Like, don't get me wrong, I think Maddison has got the capabilities, and hence why he's been made a vice captain. But you've got to reward loyalty, and we have. And even like a lot of people were questioning Son in the last couple of games, like, oh look, but again, turned up in a clutch moment. I think he's missed one big chance this season. So every chance he has, he scored goals. He scored 9 Premier League goals. He's our talisman. He's our longest serving player now in the current team, you could say. And I think perfect. I think, you know, if you said to Tottenham fans tomorrow, we're building a statue outside the ground, what, who, what, where, why, how, I'd say Son and Kane together, like with their arms around each other, celebrating, because those two made each other who they were. You know the goal record. So I think that would look great. Yeah, like a little bit of that, a little bit of Kane, like, you know, and I just feel like
they're the iconic legends of a generation, really. And
and I don't care about this all like not winning stuff, because at the end of the day, like if you went to any fan who hasn't, you know, players who haven't won stuff through their career, like maybe go to a Crystal Palace or a Brighton and say, who's your club legends? They haven't won anything. So, like, you know, and they're still like club legends, because I think people get legends confused, and you can have club legends. I mean, you saw all the club legends who got who came out of White Hart Lane when the stadium at the final game. They're all legends, and some of them didn't win anything. But you know, I think Sonny is clear. You know, he's up there with one of the best. I think he is also a world-class player still.
I think it's also what James Maddison had to say with the fact that I agree with your dad in the fact that James Maddison could be, you know, a good alternative as a captain. But what sort of Maddison had to say about Sonny, I think, is probably why he was given the captain, when he sort of says he has this big player aura around the club, and he has this sort of nice personality, but big personality at the same time. And like what you brought up too, in his history at Spurs, he has kind of come up in the clutch moments, and that sort of adds to that sort of maybe aura that you might have around the club. And he seems to be at this moment, or at least always maybe has secretly been, kind of the most well-liked and well-respected amongst kind of any of the cliques, or, you know, any of the sort of kind of players around sort of the squad. They all sort of just get along with Sonny. They all seem to find him to be a guy that they can either speak to or just, you know, seem to get along with of any of sort of the players around the team. And that seems to always have been the case. So while maybe he wasn't always for maybe certain people, the most obvious captain, you can kind of see he kind of carries a lot of different elements of what do make a good captain. The fact that he's one of the best players in the team, he's kind of has that top class sort of big personality, but big aura about him, shown up in big moments. So, you know, when you are going to be in big moments, he can do it for you, but then is kind of just well liked and well sort of respected by pretty much everybody around the club and everybody in the team. And that kind of is what makes a captain at the end of the day.
I do.
A lot of those components.
Yeah, look, I agree with you, Jack. I do think he has a lot of components. And look, there are different ways to lead, you know, to be a captain, you know. But what I would say is I don't think he's the perfect captain. I mean, that period against Man City where we were 1-0 up and then we end up, you know, crumbling before half-time and going 2-1 down, that's happened too much lately. And a good captain, you know, gets in people's ears and recognizes that and doesn't allow it to get that far. And for me, I think, you know, look, he's been a brilliant servant, and I can understand why Sonny's Aulad is questioning Sonny as a captain. I was the same at the start of the season as well. I'm not so sure about that. I think he's been a good leader, but there are moments where, you know, he needs to step up more as that captain. He needs to assert himself a bit more, start, you know, waking people up. But, you know, whether it's going, dropping around, putting an arm around them or shouting at them or whatever, because there's too often where we're like the last few while where we're winning and all of a sudden we find ourselves 2-1 down. A good captain does not allow that to happen, and he gets in people's ears and gets them going, gets them remotivated. So there are little things he still has to learn along the way. And I'm pretty sure he will learn it. I don't agree you should get a statue. Hear me out. I think look, if Daniel Levy wants to make a cash cow of it, I mean, by all means, put a statue there. However, Bill Nick, there's been some great captains and players of the past that have lifted trophies as well that deserve statues long before even Son and Kane.
There needs to be some sort of type of, I don't know, I guess you can get some sort of planner for that sort of thing, but, you can sort of litter statues, throughout the stadium in different areas and, get Bill Nick, front and center one, maybe, on sort of maybe other sections of the stadium. You can have one of other players of the past and everything like that. I think that wouldn't be a bad touch to it at all.
Levy would have them.
You got to be classy about it.
Levy would have them roped off, and you have to queue up to have your picture with it, and it costs like £10 per picture because he's like, we've got to make money out of it somehow, otherwise we're. But then again, they have added the. I mean, obviously, you guys might have not been recently, but they've added the clock back right on the corner, so they're willing to add a bit more of that sort of history and stuff like that. Was he all right? To the. He got offended by my flat cap. I'm taking over, but they've added that sort of historical element to it because I think that's what they want to do. They want to have that sort of mixture of the old and the new at the stadium.
Maybe he could do it like platform 9 3/4 for you guys.
Yeah,
and you could, you can pay for it at the end or something, but you also get a free photo as well with friends and everything, or something kind of nice touch to it. Kind of going to move on though to another great quote here, and this is a bit of a longer one, but it's Kulusevski on Ange Postecoglou, and he says, "I really, really like him. His tactics, his mentality. That's the guy you want to work with. I love his. I love exactly his mentality because that's how I want to live my life. We have to grow, but the best thing in life is not to be afraid of anything and just go for it. Doesn't matter who you're playing up against or what you're doing in life, just go. And if it messes up, it messes up. You did it with your heart. You're not afraid. You're trying to win the game, not trying to lose the game. I love the manager's game plan. It's hard because City are one of the best teams in the world and everything was not perfect against them. But the second half with 10 players out, playing like this is unbelievable for him and also for the team. So I really, really like Postecoglou a lot. His tactics, his mentality, that's the guy you want to work with. No fear, just go. I'm happy to work with him every single day." Sonny, I mean, Ange, he's awesome, I guess. And what's what Kulusevski is basically saying, he's awesome.
He is. I mean, I've got my video coming out tomorrow to plug it to the Irish Hotspur faithful. I'm doing a video on a bit of a deep dive of Kulusevski. I wanted to do one a little while ago, but I feel like now I've waited to the right time. I feel like I did well not to go down that avenue so far. I just think he's just such a good player for Ange to start. Like, runs his absolute socks off, honestly, for 90 minutes, and the goal was evident of that. But Ange is just, even the most like, a lot of Spurs fans are quite glass half empty. Maybe I bleed into that category sometimes, but I still think I'm quite positive. But even some like Spurs fans who sometimes view the club through a different sphere have got to admit that Ange is, the right manager for this football club. Usually their criticism and negativity comes from maybe Levy and, but will he be backed? Will we give him time? Can he play this style? Can he do this? Can he do that? And as I say in my post-match reaction video about Ange, it's like I just feel like this was such a good result in the sense of he's gone to a place and got a game and played his game, and it looked great. I mean, the way we were passing out from the back, our movement, even, for example, I don't think this has been made enough of. His in-game management this time, took off Brian Hill where he was struggling, brought on Højbjerg, who I feel like I'm changing my opinion on him as well. I think Højbjerg has been quite good the last couple of games as well. And also, I think bringing Ollie Skip on at the right time for Lo Celso. At first, I was a bit like, why is Lo Celso coming off? I'm not sure about this. It seemed like Skip came on and like shored up a bit more. So yeah, Ange is literally, I feel like he is turning water into wine. And I feel like Spurs fans just got to be patient. We are literally so early on in this process, and it's going to come, and we're going to do really good things. And I'm just hoping we can smack West Ham up a little bit and get a good result against Newcastle as well to, show that this period isn't as all doom and gloom as everyone thinks it might be. Or from an outsider's perspective, I say, not Tottenham fans, because I don't think that we feel like it's doom and gloom.
It looks like, Dave, that Kulusevski could have been watching a bit of Hotspur hippie with these quotes. I mean, he's just absolutely in love with Ange. Like, I don't even know if I can come up with a good, sort of question off of the back of this. It's just, some of these players clearly just love this guy. Like, they find him to be just the coolest manager ever by, these sort of quotes, basically.
Yeah, look, and the main reason why is, and I think he's alluded to it and many others have, is that he tries to bring back, what football was like for them as a kid, where you play for the love of it. You forget about the pressures, the demands, the rigorous routine, everything else that it takes on you, and you playing for the love of it. And I think every Spurs fan can see that we're now seeing a team that are genuinely playing for the love of the game, but also representing the fans the way we want to be represented. And a big part of that is because it's the way he plays the football, right? No player wants to play that pragmatic, negative way. And look, for me, I'm one of them. I see the beauty in both sides, to be honest with you. A player that can defend the box for 90 minutes, that takes unbelievable mental strength, and concentration, etc., etc. And there's no, I would say, well, there is a right and a wrong way, but there's obviously two ways to go and win football matches, Jack. I think me and you are both similar in that regard. However, with Postecoglou, everything's about being on the football, wanting to play, wanting to score goals. And it makes you feel like you're a kid again, because that's what you were taught as you were a kid. You weren't so much drilled in on tactics, worrying about the opposition, stopping them. This is what we want you to do. Pass, move, go and play the game, go and score goals. So I can understand why so many players feel like that under Postecoglou. But also, one thing I'll give Postecoglou is that he seems to get the modern day sort of player. And what I mean by that is Jose and Conte are old school, right? You scream at someone and you hope that they respond. And I'm one of them. I respond to someone screaming at me rather than someone sitting there patting me on the head and, telling me I'm a great lad. But with the way modern day players are, and I hear this time and time again being brought up in podcasts, analysis all over, the modern day player can't take that. Where Ange comes in, it's like, look, this is what I want you to do. I get there's great pressure on it, but don't forget about that. Clear that out of your mind. I'll take the brunt of that. I'll take the responsibility of that. And he comes out in the press conferences and he does that, compared to maybe a Jose or a Conte, where they'd come out and absolutely berate the players. However, I understand why they did, because the squads they had to deal with were very, very, very frustrating. Whereas Postecoglou has had the benefit of more rotation of them squads. So I don't feel he feels as much frustration. But also the way the guy handles the adversity as well, I absolutely love. Willing to try different things, not afraid to drop certain personnel who just aren't good enough, rather than persist with them. So I can really understand why players love playing for him. And another thing I hear him talk about is them team talks. I encourage everybody, go and listen to the one he gave the Australian national team before, I think it was before the World Cup. I mean, my spine was tingling afterwards. Absolutely.
Madison had some great quotes about it, right?
Yeah,
He just
Maddison
had some saying he wants to run through a wall most of the time after he gives,
yeah. Kulu alluded to the halftime team talk they got. Him and Vicario were saying it in a post-match interview about the halftime team talk. They asked Ange about, and he said, yeah, look, maybe it wasn't as nice as that. There's only certain parts that are for consumption out there for the people. So I've no doubt, he does have that angriness in him. But I think when he gets like that, because the players know that he genuinely cares about them as human beings, they respond to it. Whereas I don't think they actually thought that Jose or Conte really cared about them. So they just sort of go the other way. But look, when it comes to Postecoglou, I've been trying to tell people, get off his case, let him work his magic. He's a good manager. He's a very good manager. I remember, Jack, when we were putting out a manager video, I know we put a red X through him, but I was arguing with you. I don't really want to do it. However, would Levy, my main thing about it was, would Levy have the balls to appoint someone that's as unknown as Postecoglou to the Premier League rather than go for another big name? It turns out he did, and now hopefully he continues to back it, because this guy is the right guy for this club. If he can still get stuff out of a makeshift backline, makeshift midfield, and still get the same sort of performances or pride from the fans behind the performances, he's the right guy. What really let him down over the last 3 games was squad depth. Nothing else. Injuries, suspensions, they're a course of football. They're going to happen every season. Every season we go into it, we're just unlucky with injuries. No, we're not. We're stupid in the transfer market because we don't do enough to clear out that squad and give us strength in depth. We get that under Ange Postecoglou next year. I guarantee you will not see that dip.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Asha is saying here, for you, Sonny, that I think the difference between Ange and our previous prima donnas, I think she's referring to Conte and Jose, is that the players want to emulate him as a person rather than just play his football. I agree with that latter part, right? That perhaps with Jose and Conte, not always do you get the whole squad really in love with those guys' personality, but maybe they get in love with sort of the mission or kind of, the goal in mind that those guys sort of set out. But that almost has a bit of a time, or it has an expiration, I guess, where is maybe with Ange, there's a bit of longevity to the fact that people actually like him as a person, as well.
I think, the managers before, we knew it was like a 2-season timescale of we need to win now. We've got the resources to win now. Let's try and win now. And at the time, I agreed with that. Like, we had a squad that should probably have been winning now, but then you exist in the league when City are there, Liverpool are there. And then Ange is more, set out to, even it made me laugh when people were like, Ange won't be long at Tottenham. He never stays anywhere long. He's only going to sign a 2-year deal, and then he signs a 4-year deal. And then Poch, everyone's like, he's there for the long haul. He's going to build a process at Chelsea. And he signed a 2-year deal. And it's like, people just don't understand. Like, people don't know anything until it happens sometimes. And I think, it is going to be a process, and likes to build stuff up. I keep hearing people say it, and it is really the oldest idiom in the book, but Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither is this project. We're at such the beginning of it. It's literally the foundations of the house being built at the moment. And look how and it's going well. Like, it is going well. Like, we've got such good results against Liverpool, Arsenal, Manchester United, Man City now. And the last couple of games, Chelsea was a bizarre game. Wolves, Eric Dyer. And Villa, we could have, that could have gone one or two ways. Even Ange Postecoglou said that. Everyone was saying, like, oh, do you think City were unlucky today in that first half? We literally had the same game against Villa. Could have been 3-0 up. Just how football works. Point. And that's coming from the manager himself. Football is a bizarre game. And even Ange will know. Ange will know, like, he'll probably won't be happy after that result. 3 goals conceded. He'll probably be thinking, we need to work on a few different bits, but luckily he's going to have Romero back, start an actual centre back. And I think you have to actually say hats off to Emerson and Ben Davies for sort of coping with these last couple of games, not playing in their most natural positions. I think they've been fine. I think they've been all right. I think Emerson's been better than Ben Davies, but that's what I was saying. Like, that's why I just think, it is all like he's handling the situation as well as he can. And people are going to say, how's he going to handle it? And it's just but I don't think many other managers get this same sort of it's because of he's Australian. It all become it gets a bit silly. Maybe Eric Ten Hag at Man United, but they're a different kettle of fish.
It's almost like Kulusevski and certain players have gotten more respect for Postecoglou and the fact that he hasn't, switched things up, or he hasn't all of a sudden ripped up his tactics with certain players, being out. They've actually, gotten more togetherness and more confidence in him actually after that, playing Emerson and Ben Davies at center back and actually getting good performances and almost feeling like, damn, we actually should have won that game. And kind of, you could say both of those games. It felt like in the second half, certain Spurs players were almost going for the win, really, when you look at it. And two, in the Aston Villa game, I thought we did really outplay Aston Villa for the majority of that game. So they could sort of look at it as like, dang, we are giving these teams a real go, despite, having all these losses. Whereas other managers, maybe in the past, I said this to you yesterday, Dave, on the fan show, maybe with other managers in the past, when they found themselves in a situation like this, if they did, they would have kind of already maybe made some sort of murmurings of, complaining about either Levy or complaining about the quality of the players at their disposal. Just always led to some sort of maybe drama of some type when we were put in these really, tough moments. And Ange has actually found a way to, I guess, sort of avoid that, like avoid kind of the unnecessary, maybe added pressure that he could have put on himself if he wanted to make excuses or if he wanted to cover his own back, I guess, in some sort of way. But he hasn't here. And I think that's actually, allowed him to get more respect and more confidence from his players on that. And there's another quote from, go ahead. And there's another quote from Kulusevski that I want us to touch on. I'll throw that one to you too.
Yeah, I was just going to say quickly, Jack, off that point as well. I think, look, you do make a great point. And I think, look, with a Jose and Conte, right, if there was a weakness in the squad, I think everybody would know about, and the tactics would be tailored to that. And it'd make you feel like a less player, right, when someone else is having to do something different to cover you and help you out, this, that, and the other. Whereas with Postecoglou, I do think it exposes players, but it exposes them in the right way, I should say, because with Postecoglou, it's like, look, I ain't changing my tactics for you. You better go out there and perform, and and it's sort of it drags something extra out of that player, but also exposes whether a player is just good enough to be here or not. So I think you've definitely got merit to that, Jack. It's interesting. I love Postecoglou. That's all I can say. I love him.
It's hard to even come up with, like I said, good questions about it because you're just like, wow, isn't Ange just great? After some of these quotes. But another one quickly from Kulusevski for both of you. We proved we can play against anybody without a lot of good players. We just have to grow a little bit mentally, and we're going to be at the top. That's the only thing missing. The football is there. The coach is there. We have everything at Tottenham. What does he mean by having to grow a bit mentally? I'm going to go to you, Dave, on this because we have touched on this in the past.
Look, Jack, it's the terms of going out there and believing in yourself, right? I've no doubt the Spurs players went into that game with trepidation. You could see that within the first half. When we scored, they looked like they thought they were lucky to score, but also look how the rest of that half sort of panned out. We sort of didn't believe in ourselves. We made a lot of problems off our own back with passing out from the back. People were nervous, etc. But when Postecoglou got them in at half time, basically in a nice roundabout way, believe yourself. Forget about the pressure. Forget about how good they are, and believe in yourself. And we've seen that in the second half. And when the players start to believe, look at the performances they can put in, and they can go and match the very best. So I think that's what he means in terms of that mentality, Jack. Because I remember I was fuming at halftime of the City game, and I'm like, look, regardless whether they're better than us or not, technically and individually, which they are, but one thing they should not be doing is outworking us. And they outworked us in that first half, and they got the reward. Whereas when we upped that intensity and upped that work rate in the second half, started chasing around and getting stuck in the way we should, we got a lot of joy. So I think that's what he's alluding to when it comes to that sort of mentality. What I would say is I'm more interested in what does he mean by not a lot of good players. I mean, is he referring to the likes of Davies and that at the back? I wonder.
That's what I
think he's coming from the mentality.
That's what I sort of was stealing, actually, Kulusevski's quote, really, when I was touching on earlier, that maybe some of the players have gotten more confidence in Ange because he's been successful with lesser players or players that aren't as talented in recent games. And I think Kulusevski would probably agree with that. I think he seems to be sort of alluding to that in some sort of manner. But I'm finding that, quite funny. Clearly, he's not maybe the biggest fan of maybe one of those players in the back line or whoever else has stepped in. Very nice and honest from Kulusevski there. But maybe on growing mentally and saying that we still have some work there, I feel like we have brought in a lot of better players when it comes to the mentality front, Sonny, but he is saying that we need to work on it. So what do you think he means by that? And do you agree, though, that maybe we are seeing a better mentality, though, from certain Spurs players, maybe like himself?
I mean, I feel like this has been a problem at Tottenham for a number of years. Spursy as a term, as much as it annoys the fan base, it is a thing. We can't lie. It seems like, even after, you come back into a game like that, it's like that game was a perfect opportunity of it both ways. You come back into a game at 2-1, at 2-2, sorry, and you're like, oh my God, we're back. And then Grealish scores, and you're like, what's like, what? And then you find a winner from somewhere. It goes backwards and forwards. But I think it highlights the point I made last week of we've been such a good team at, getting points from losing positions, like Sheffield United, like one of the latest ever comebacks ever. But then in the last 3 games, before City, we went 1-0 up and lost from those positions. So there is a lot of, and what happens is, and Dave will probably love this, is it sometimes comes from a certain mentality of player in the squad, and we are trying to weed these players out. So we're keeping the elite of the elite at the club, such as Son, such as, Pedro Porro, such as, Basuma, like players who are buying into this new sort of regime. And then the other players are bringing in the new players, whether they're Maddison or Mickey van der Ven, who want to buy into this philosophy or whatnot. So, yeah, I think there's still a long way to go because Tottenham still show that sort of edge of it getting to us. But I think if everyone's pulling in the same direction, I don't think it can really fail.
One of my favorite things about Paratici was he did say often in his interviews or those sort of kind of address, whatever, those sort of things to the fans that he would send out. He did mention a lot, like a lot of the players that they're looking at, yes, are talented players, but we're looking more into the character, the mentality, those sort of things. And a lot of people kind of saw that as sort of just, I don't know, PR propaganda or whatever from sort of Spurs at the time, Daniel Levy, avoiding the questions and everything. I'll be honest, I was happier to listen to Paratici than I was to Daniel Levy. I think Daniel Levy, of course, should come out and speak more, but I was interested in what Paratici had to say. I didn't think all of it was just going to be BS or anything like that. I think he was going to say certain things that Spurs, could, maybe in a few years' time, look back and, actually realize, dang, he actually did improve, the mentality of, the squad in general. I think he brought in players like Bentancur, brought in players like Pedro Porro, like you mentioned there, Sonny. Even Romero's mentality, while some people find it to, be a bit on the aggressive side. I mean, Romero clearly enjoys winning, and he clearly enjoys to rubbing it as well, maybe an opposition player's face after he gets a good 3 points or anything like that too. He's already a World Cup winner as well, and started in the majority, if not all those games as well of that World Cup too. So he's a vital part of that mentality of that Argentinian team, which did seem rock solid, right? That Argentinian team, they did seem very together. And you can look at plenty of other players, like even Emerson, I would say, is a brilliant mentality kind of example. Maybe not the most talented player in the team, but has probably undergone more abuse in a short span of time from Spurs fans than any player I could really ever remember, and has almost gotten stronger out of it. Has turned that, received that, turn that, and then become a better player out of it in some bizarre, twisted type of fashion. And you don't really see that anymore, usually from players. Usually that is something that can actually really bring them down and make them kind of go into a bit of a shell. But he's actually internalized that and used that to, like I said, his own strength. And you could say that with other players. Even Basuma, I think, has this own sort of kind of unique confidence, and maybe it's almost a bit of a cliche, but kind of good type of arrogance, like Rio Ferdinand would say, or guys like that. And I enjoy the mentality of change in a lot of these players. I find a lot of them to be ones I can really get behind and really have confidence in as people, as players, as athletes. Vicario, of course, you could throw in too, and then Kulusevski with these brilliant quotes that he's had recently too. I think Paratici, while he's brought in brilliant players, but the mentality of some of these guys really has been top notch. Pop Matasar is like an 18-year-old who can boss, a game at the San Siro at 18 years old. I mean, these kids and these guys that he's brought in all have had elite mentalities, and I think that is thanks to Paratici.
Yeah, look, 100%. Two things on one thing on what Sonny said and one thing on what you said there, Jack. I'll start with what Sonny said. I mean, look, in terms of the mentality, in terms of the player, the drop-off only came when some of the older, weaker mentalities actually started coming in. That's where the performances dropped. When we had the best mentalities out there, even when we went one down, we never stopped. We came back. We picked up points. Look at the big teams we faced this year. Man United, Arsenal, Liverpool, teams like that. City there at the weekend, getting results out of that. But it only really came off when Dyer started coming back in. Davies started coming back in. I don't know. People are going to say, oh, Dave, you're always on their case. Well, then get them out of the club so I don't keep seeing the same patterns then, because it's always the same patterns when these guys step in. We know they don't have the mentality. They have that weak mentality. and they have to go. And I do think it will fully change when that goes, when they go. And look, Jack, onto your point, I'm going to tie it in here. This is how good I am. But when it comes to the recruitment, Paratici, like you alluded to, has explicitly gone after how, after the person, the type of player. Postecoglou speaks about it, how important the type of person of that player is. And for me, it's absolutely crucial. You look at what made Sir Alex Ferguson so great. His trick was looking into the player, how he lives his life, the mentality of the player. Jose Mourinho, why was he so successful? Look at a lot of the mentality monsters that he managed. People like that. So, the mentality and the person does actually matter. We even go back to some of the examples. Ndombele, who done the research into him? Real Madrid, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, Man City, all after Ndombele. He lands at Tottenham. Why? Because they all done their research into the player, into the background of the player, and steered well clear. We thought we'd be the smart guys. Oh, look, everyone else was interested. We'll come out with this. We'll look coming out smelling the roses. But as you can see, we've bought a dud. The guy doesn't give a shit, doesn't want to run. We've tried loaning him out. He just does not care. He's just taking his paycheck, and he doesn't care about the game of football whatsoever. So Paratici is 100% right. And since he started doing that, look at the players he's brought in. A lot of had questions at the time. That signing's useless, that signing's useless. But all the guys that people back that they thought were better, the likes of Winks and all them guys, where are they now? Gone. Weak mentality. That's why they're out. Paratici spots the mentality, brings them in. That's why you've got the likes of Romero and people in this squad. Absolutely love it. You guys are absolutely spot on with what you were saying there. And I think this is something we have to realize. Mentality and the person matters. So even when we're talking about bringing in players, with that being a massive part of the recruitment, we and I'm going to start doing this, but we should also go and delve into the player, into the way he lives his life, as part of our analysis.
Love that. Absolutely love that. And pro work there from Dave, tying everything in there and, bringing it all together. I think we're going to move into part 3 here. And it's kind of a bit of a silly question to sort of kind of wind down. And then sort of as a bonus section, I think we'll just sort of do it live where maybe we'll just take some questions and comments towards the end to anybody that's still listening on this. And we really do appreciate everybody that has been listening so far, all of you members. But into part 3, I kind of have starting to notice maybe, Sonny, that maybe especially after Kulusevski's dunk on Ake, which I think really could be qualified as a dunk of a header. We're starting to see maybe an NBA, dare I say, NFL celebrations starting to maybe influence or come into people's goal celebrations. It could be, maybe my chance to throw in some Yank influence of some kind, into the world of into the world of football. We'll find a way to insert ourselves. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? And do you agree with me that maybe the way that players now kind of celebrate goals and everything, it's not as many knee slides now, it's a bunch of these sort of weird, sort of routines and everything. And I must say that's always been the case in the NBA, the NFL. They've been doing that for years. So you feel like maybe they're starting to take that from the Yanks?
I mean, when it comes to NBA, NFL, American sport, they do get creative with their celebrations. I love a knee slide though. There's something about a clean knee slide. It's almost like, especially when someone I don't know if this is such a thing worldwide, but it seems to be like an English WhatsApp thing. When someone does someone or pranks someone or gets someone rattled or whatever, annoyed, you just put a gif of a knee slide, and it's just like David Luiz just like absolutely going for it. So I still think a knee slide, but comparing it to like, in the back in the day where like players were just one hand in the air like Shearer or like something like that, I think modern celebrations are becoming quite fun. Like, Son's little picture one, I think it's almost like it becomes part of their brand. Maddison with the dart, it's their brand, isn't it? And also, if you're lucky enough, you'll get it on the new like EAFC/FIFA game, won't you? So and they're always used as like, the little shushing one. I like Trent. I noticed Trent kept doing shush at the weekend, and it just looks so like ice in the vein sort of thing. But yeah, I'm all for modern celebrations. Wherever you can get inspiration, I think the more original the better. Because I mean, I'm not so into my American sports, but is that LeBron James that one there?
Yeah,
or Benteke.
Yeah.
Benteke did it for a while as well. So,
Yeah.
who's the bigger GOAT, LeBron James or Christian Benteke? I'll let the comments decide.
It also, I've noticed with like strikers that score a lot of goals, like maybe I've heard someone, I think it was Eden Hazard, of course, he was a bit lazy, so it sort of makes sense. But players that do score a lot of goals, they kind of said that, the knee slide kind of hurts. You kind of just want
it
to
does.
just do something that maybe adds to, now it's all about building a brand, all these sort of things, like when it comes to their Instagrams and everything like that. Like I think even Lewandowski, right, did some silly thing where you go like that. See, Benzema always had some like type of celebration too that he would always have. Of course, Ronaldo with his "see" and everything. It's just, it all like leads to, Dybala does the mask thing. I think Grealish does some silly thing too, and Mbappe, right? All these big star players, they all have these just whatever sort of, I don't know, celebrations that they've just practiced in front of a mirror 10 times before a game, and then they just start doing it for the time afterwards. But yeah, I think it's probably something that's either been taken from the NFL or the NBA, because it's always been the case. Like you always see after just those, because there's so much stopping and starting, I think, like in American sports, that I guess there's nothing you can do other than just dance or, do some silly sort of kind of a routine of some kind, after you make a big play. So it seems like that's what players are doing nowadays, especially even Madison's. Like Madison's is like something that you would see from the NFL from like 30 years ago, even after someone like scored a touchdown or something. Even though I know it has to do with the darts, I just think it's all sort of somehow related, to maybe just this what is globalism or whatever of sports, and just sort of the cross sort of, kind of influence of just sort of the medias and everything like that. And Kulusevski, in fact, I know is a big NBA fan. Like I think he is a footballer first, but he seems to really enjoy his NBA almost than he even
he did a
enjoys,
little quiz recently.
Yeah, and he did a quiz or something. Knows a bunch of players. You're right. Yeah, sorry, Dave. Yeah, you're about to.
No, it goes beyond that. You even look at some of the hairstyles. I believe Emerson's was the same as that quarterback in the NFL. What's his name? I can't remember. Netflix done a documentary on him. Anyway, it goes beyond that. But I think the reason why a lot of them look at the likes of the NBA and the NFL is because, like, I watch a lot of documentaries and stuff across YouTube on, even American sports and the mentality and the money that's geared into it at a high school level all the way through. And the mentality of them guys. And also every single one of them are well aware of building a brand, right? They're all influenced by someone. And I think when you look at footballers now, back in the day, they didn't really want to be influencers. They were just going out there, playing football and still living the life of a normal human being, being down in the pubs with them after games and stuff like that. Whereas now they're on such a pedestal, just like NBA players and NFL players have always been over in America. They're now influencers, and I think they see themselves more as that as well, an influencer and a footballer. Plus, being told that by the media all the time, if any of them go off and have a bit of fun, oh, you can't do that, you're supposed to be an influencer. So they're well aware of it, So for me, I can understand why it comes in. And me, I don't mind it whatsoever, talking about people that make lots of sacrifices and stuff like that. When the moment does come good, let them enjoy themselves, as long as it's to a minimum.
Okay, yeah, not too much celebrating, but enough. And this is their little luxuries in life. And some further questions here. Best ever Spurs player goal celebration, Sonny, in your eyes? What's the best ever celebration you can remember from a Spurs player?
I'm getting in there early because I don't know, well, Irish Hotspur here, so I've got to pick Robbie Keane. Just the forward roll, the little, it's just so iconic. And when he always did it, even when he got a bit older, he would always do it throughout his whole career. And I always liked it because I think we tried to always recreate it in the playground when I was younger, but I'd ended up doing it and then like getting me back caught and like just go, oh, actually, I've gone over on my neck a bit funny. I'd say that, or I'm trying to think if there's any other ones down the years. I remember Tom Huddleston used to do some like, he always would score like a banger and then just hold his hand up, and I just thought that was cool. So yeah, that was good. And then Klinsmann, and then I really liked Modric when he scored a banger against Liverpool. He did a really good knee slide, so probably those.
You like the knee slides, I can tell. And for you, Dave, favorite ever Spurs celebration?
Yeah, look, like Sonny, I absolutely love Robbie Keane's one. Little Dave running around on his estate, rounding 4 players, putting it between the keeper's legs, doing the cartwheel and then doing that to the neighbour's house. Absolutely loving life. One of my favorite of all time has to be Jurgen Klinsmann, getting a lot of stick at the time about being a diver, scores, does the diving celebration, winds up the press. That was absolutely brilliant. But for me, it's got to be Harry Kane kicking the duck ball against Brighton away. I was there for it. Two of my favorite things, Coke and Harry Kane combining for one great moment. I mean, I absolutely loved it. I'd have to say, Sonny this year against Arsenal, running behind the goal like that was good.
That was cold.
Done something similar when he's
like Van der Vaart.
There's been a few.
Yeah, it was like Van der Vaart. I would say Sonny has probably had some of the coldest celebrations, you could say. Like so he definitely enjoys like a classy shush, when at the right moments. Doesn't do it every time, but does it sometimes. And also that Man City one, they always love to use where, right, he says, like, what does he say? Like, remember me, or, I'm me.
Who I am.
Yeah, you know who I am now, like, sort of. And that still gives me, sort of chills every time. So might give it to Sonny in that case, but I agree with actually Van der Vaart. Van der Vaart did have some good ones too. He did enjoy a bit of housery with the fans. He's kind of almost like the Vardy type in that regard. But yeah, I think when it comes to Spurs players, those are some good shouts. Favorite ever non-Spurs player, celebration? Maybe if you like any of those signature celebrations of any kind.
Are we saying against Spurs, or are we saying in general?
Just
Because
in
I've got
general.
one.
General, is there a player that you like? You find his celebration funny, or a player that you always think has a good knee slide? Or yeah.
My two favourites. One against Spurs was, I liked when Rooney did the boxing knockout one, because it annoyed me, but it was the whole fact in the lead up to the game he was boxing in his kitchen, didn't he? So it was quite a good sort of like blocking out the haters. But apart from that,
he was knocked out by Phil Bardsley on that or something.
Yeah,
that's where it came from.
I remember some video from the Sun or something. And then apart from that, I do like a dance. So when South Africa scored that opening goal at the 2010 World Cup, Tish Bala, and they did the Bafana, the dance, and then just like that. When they put that on FIFA one year, it was so funny because it used to just rattle people when they just moved and then did a little like do that.
Yeah.
So I'm a fan of a dance. I like a dance.
Was it Weir that went to the corner flag, and started dancing with the corner flag?
Yeah.
That was good.
That's a good one.
We started seeing a lot of them when the African teams were starting to make the World Cups, which was good. Some iconic celebrations there. Sebas Wolf has a great one with Harry Kane ripping off the mask. I mean, against Arsenal, that was absolutely beautiful. I have to say, though, I think my favourite of all time has to be Balotelli, Why Always Me.
Yeah.
That's got Dave written all
great
over
shout. Great shout.
To the people. That's
great
got
shout.
to be my all-time.
It came out of nowhere, too. Even just his flex celebration, too, was also just absolutely legendary. That's a great shout. For me, I would go, because he's basically my favorite player ever, would be Thomas Müller, just because what I like about Thomas Müller is I've never seen him run to a flagpole or to a corner flag once, ever. He just wherever he scores it from, he just stands there and immediately celebrates and screams at whatever opponent that is right next to him, and then just sort of does this like rotating, like just screaming, sort of like, hands out. He's a big fan of the limbs sort of thing. He actually celebrates it like I think any fan would if they were just glued immediately to the ground and weren't allowed to move. I find it quite funny, and almost Romero sometimes does a bit of the same, where he loves to, celebrate right in front of an opponent of some kind. And I noticed Thomas Müller has always been a big fan of that, just screaming right in front of whatever goalkeeper. Even if it's a tap in, he'll celebrate right on the goal line. I find that just hilarious, and you'll see just a crowd of players just swarm whatever player just got scored on and everything. And I've always just found that to be just a bit of, nice housery when it comes to scoring. I would do the same thing. And like I said, I genuinely have never seen him run to a corner flag. I've always seen him just glued immediately to the spot after celebrating. And he likes celebrating with the teammates as well, which I think is kind of nice. Not as much about the sort of signature celebrations as much. Just likes a bit of housery. And another question here. Oh, yeah, Dave,
quickly,
go ahead. Yeah.
I just want to throw in one more honourable mention. Was Adarabioyo that ran the full length of the pitch to go and celebrate? I think was in either front of Arsenal or City fans after the stick he was received. An honourable mention.
And Vardy's had some terrific ones too, I must say. Vardy's had some terrific ones too that are always just fun to watch. When it comes to a manager, though, and when they see their team score, plenty of different reactions you'll get. You'll see managers that pretty much don't even flinch. You'll see managers that do just a little, kind of a fist pump or something, or maybe a little kind of shake of the hands or hug with their assistant. And then you see managers, like Conte, Jose go absolutely nuts and, lose their bonker, anytime that a goal goes in, especially Conte, I must say. Where do you lie on that sort of a range or spectrum, Sonny? What do you prefer your manager to do when a goal goes in?
I think it depends at the moment of the game, doesn't it? Like if it's 1-0 up in the first couple of minutes, I don't expect a manager to be going bonkers. I think Ange is the perfect definition of that. Like when it's like leveling up a game, he sort of like just a little one like that. If it's towards the end, he really goes for it. I feel like that's what I like. A measured manager who knows how to react to the game. As a fan, probably would as well. Like celebrate as and when you need to, sort of thing.
Yeah, Dave, what do you prefer from your manager?
I'm a little bit different in that regard. I love the old Jose Mourinho knee slide, stuff like that. I want to see my manager go for it. That's what I partly liked about Conte Cam, is when we scored, he'd be going absolutely ballistic. I want to see that. I want to see my manager turn around to the fans, give it the fist pumps, 3 of them, get everyone behind. I want to just see limbs, look, scoring goals in football is the hardest thing to do. A bit easier now with VAR, I'd argue, because to try and help teams in that regard. But look, I want to see everyone lose it. It's what it's about, Jacko,
I do miss the Conte Cam. I really do, actually. It was fun to watch, just see kind of just him lose his mind, on certain goals and late winners and everything. Probably my favorite thing is when a manager actually stares down the other manager, or any bit of housery between managers after a goal scored. Certain managers, give that look over, or sort of, do some type of, kind of mean type of, look of some kind. And I do appreciate that. I think Simeone, you could see him do that. Always a big fan of his housery of any kind. So yeah, I'm a big fan of any sort of if you're trying to start something between you and the other manager when a goal goes in for your team. I'm always a big fan of that. I'm always happy to see any sort of a kind of touchline sort of kind of antics, or touchline sort of scuffles. But now we've reached kind of the end of this podcast here, and I thought maybe instead of coming up with our own bonus question, just sort of maybe take some comments or questions from yourselves here, from anybody that's still listening. I think you wanted to start something here earlier from Steve D, and we can answer it quickly here. It is I guess a very personal kind of opinion here from Steve D, and we do appreciate Steve. He says, to be honest, gents, I think our own fan base are the most guilty in perpetuating the Ange narrative. For the most part, he's been universally acclaimed. We seem to be the architects of the negatives, in my opinion. Dave, you know how to answer to Steve, so I'll throw this one towards you. Do you have, what's your thoughts on maybe what he's thinking here?
I would say definitely not in that category. Not one of them guys, I absolutely love Ange. But yeah, look, we are. Look, I think at Tottenham, there's a big proportion that when we lose, everyone has to take part of the blame. Reality football isn't that difficult. It doesn't need to be that hard. Sometimes you can just pinpoint the problem and get it sorted. But whereas, and look, we've seen it, right? As soon as we went out of the Carabao Cup, rather than sit here and talk about the same individuals who have hurt us under previous managers, everyone went to Ange Postecoglou. After the Chelsea game, everyone went to Ange Postecoglou. After the Wolves game, is he naive, this, that, and the other? I mean, it's just absolutely nonsense. I mean, the City game would prove to everybody, and all the big games, where we traditionally don't really pick up a lot of points. It's working every single one of them games. Because not only do we go and play football, we outwork the big teams as well, which is a huge benefit and comes back to favour us. But for me, I think we just need to get back of criticising all these managers. Jack, I've been on it been around way too long. I'm sick of people going after the managers all the time. We've got to realise that Tottenham, we sit here, we talk about wanting trophies. Well, like Sonny said earlier, right? Rome isn't built in a day. It takes time, and it's up to the board and the owners and that to be able to give these managers the players and the right tools to be able to go out and succeed. But what we've done is we've set unrealistic targets to managers and expect them to achieve them with shit players. But look, we're very quick to go after managers at this football club. We protect the likes of Davies and Dyer and people like that. And let's be frank, that's why they've been here 10 years. because people don't want to be, when it comes to Conte or Jose Mourinho, no, he's this, he's that. But when it comes to Dyer or Davies, it's everyone else that has to take the blame. Look, for me, I think we just need to get off the manager's back, give him time, realize where we're at, go back and look at what he's produced this season, really realize he's the right guy. And instead of looking at his tactics, his high line, all this sort of jazz, just sit there and call for improvements this January. Football is not as difficult as the modern day, analysis around football makes it out to be in terms of statistics and all this sort of jazz. It really is a simple game. You look at Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool, right? Liverpool fans wouldn't have liked him after losing to West Brom with the squad going up, doing all that to the fans. But they still gave him time, and look what he went on to do. So we should take a leaf out of that, out of Liverpool fans' book, and give the manager a bit of time and let him build.
And Sonny, I'll throw this one to you, and then we'll wrap things up here. Ash said earlier, when it comes to kind of maybe the players in general, apart from Ndombele, I believe the squad isn't divided between good and bad players, but rather between improved players and to be improved players. And she's saying maybe Skippy is an example.
I think most of the players have gone up. They've gone up. I think they've all gone up apart from Dyer, but notches. I think some players have highly improved. I think some players have slightly improved. I think that's where the yet to improve maybe comes in, and we've just seen it depends the scenario. So a lot of the for example, a lot of the players from the Fulham game who I lambasted, I think they've also all come into their own. Look at Lo Celso, look at Højbjerg, Emerson. All these players are sort of, growing into the system, because at the end of the day, it is a very different style of football. It's gone from one extreme to the other, and it does take time. But we know the players who can't handle the system, and they'll be slowly leaving the club. But yeah, I feel like I'd say across the board, a lot of the players have improved. The players to improve, I think we could expect to see more from, say, Brennan Johnson. I think we've seen some nice stages so far, but I still think there is a lot more to come for players like him.
And before we let maybe Dave have the final words on the podcast, Sonny, anything to plug for your channel? And once again, thank you for another fine podcast with yourself. Thanks for doing something a little different and doing the live show with us. Also, love to see you start without a flat cap and end with a flat cap, and the agendas and everything are already being made. It's great to see.
Thanks again. I really enjoyed the live one, actually. It's good to get involved with the members on the channel as well. Obviously, if no members are subscribed, come on over, check some of my content out. Got my reaction to the City game that went live yesterday, just giving my thoughts and saying how Ange proved a lot of people wrong. And then tomorrow I've got a deep dive about how Dejan Kulusevski is the most underrated player at Tottenham, basically saluting him and giving him a big old pat on the back, because my main argument for that is because I feel like I said, sorry, I'll go quickly here. I feel like his goal numbers don't reflect how good of a player he is, and a lot of non-Tottenham fans are always like, oh, but he's only scored 4 goals this season. I'm like, yeah, but he does more than that. You've got to look at it sometimes away from the stats. He is just such a good worker and the definition of an Ange player. So yeah, look out for that.
No, that was really well said and actually really well described, and actually I think needs to be said more about players like him, especially. Dave, any final words from yourself before we wrap this one up here?
Yeah, quickly, me and Steve D finally agree on something which, it's took us 2 years to get here, Steve D. Absolutely love it. But big up, Steve D, my man. Absolutely brilliant comment. That set me off on a tangent. Look, first of all, I want to give you props, Jack. Really good podcast there. Real good mix of questions. Really enjoyed it. So thank you for that. Also, thank you to Sonny, continuously comes here every single week, despite being a very, very busy boy, to give up his time to come and share some of his wisdom with us. So please make sure you get over and show the same love that you show us to Sonny Talk Spurs as well. And everyone, all the members, I want to say a massive thank you to you guys. What me and Jack do really isn't possible without people that, support the channels, especially this channel, through memberships and super chats. So I want to say a massive thank you to you, and hopefully you've enjoyed the members only chat. And I know this is going live after, so if you want to be in an exclusive group, grab that channel membership and you will get more of these podcasts live as we're going along, and you'll be able to interact with us. But that's it from us. Let's go and beat the West Ham. I cannot wait for this game.
Some
Thursday,
bubbles.
the Irish Hotspur derby.
And answer to Ash here is, I think Dave and I just randomly just seem to always do it without communicating at all. I think we just somehow symbiotically are able to do this on a pretty consistent occasion. So one day maybe we won't be as consistent, but we seem to always get it right with sort of the color coordination. But appreciate you already noticing that. But we'll wrap it up there.
Like we texting better, though.
We'll pop some bubbles. Pop some bubbles Thursday. Do look out for Sonny Talk Spurs content as well. Really well, put out by him. And as well, like Dave said, if you wanted to maybe get involved in something like this, feel free to grab a membership, and then you'll be able to see it. But we'll leave you there. Come on, you Spurs. In the big Ange, we trust. We never stop. See you, everybody.